3F, property liability insurance selection.
All right, for property, we're going to be recommending that you continue with Liberty Mutual. We've been with Ohio Casualty, Liberty Mutual, the entire time I've been here for just about all these lines. There's a couple of years where we went out away from them, but for the most part, we've been with them. The premium for next year for the Liberty Mutual lines, which includes liability, fleet, and building coverage, is going to drop $3,228. It's going to go, the total package is going to go from $266,410 to $263,182, and that is on, and it, values have increased by about $7 million. That's on property that values. Property values right at $178,500,000.
That's not bad then.
Yeah. So you got a decrease there. So if there was a slight increase due to payrolls increasing in comp, you're getting it back there. And if you recall, we budgeted a flat amount, so we're pretty close when we talked about that last month.
3G, student accident insurance selection.
Okay, we've had student accident insurance for just about as long as I've been here. Early on, we just covered athletes. 10 years ago, probably at least, we started covering all students. I think the first year we did that, the premium was about $27,000. Last year, that premium started to creep up. Really wasn't creeping up, it was going up pretty quickly. A few years ago, we limited the physical therapy piece of that to $1,000. Prior to that, it was usual and customary. Whatever happened, they pay. We capped PT at $1,000 3 or 4 years ago. Even with capping that, our premium last year was $61,155. And if you recall, we talked through this for a few minutes. You all wanted to continue. I will tell you, there's a lot of conversation among school districts. Mr. Orr, I don't know if you've seen any, but we've seen it with finance folks about dropping it. We're not going to recommend that we drop this coverage. I think eventually with the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid expansion, once we've been in that a little longer and we're a little more comfortable with who's covered, we can certainly start to scale it back more and more, but we are going to recommend, I believe, to go to a scheduled policy for all benefits. What we have now is we cap PT at $1,000, but everything else is paid usual and customary. It's sort of like your health insurance. We're going to recommend, I believe, to go to a scheduled policy where if you break your arm, fall on the playground, break your arm, they'll pay $800 for that. And again, this is secondary coverage. This covers, it'll pay up to $800. If your parent's deductible is $500, it's all going to be paid for. But it does limit how high your tab can go when you go to those schedules versus usual and customary. And the premium for that is not too far from where we're at today. It's with a different carrier. We're currently with K&K, be the same agent. We go to Liberty Mutual, and the premium for that policy would be $67,402. So you'd spend about $6,300 more. You'd get slightly less coverage, but you'd still be covering all students. And I think we can take a look at a year from now and see if there's more information available. Maybe we'll get some information as to what other districts do. If districts start to drop the coverage because of Medicaid expansion, who knows? Maybe eventually we
The only problem is you're wrong on that deductible. Most people is $1,000 now on the deductible.
Some even more than that, you've got a high deductible on most consumer-driven healthcare plans.
Right, might be.
Well, if you get a broken arm fixed for $800, you're doing fine now, because it don't happen.
The more you break, the more you save.
Yeah, yeah. Break more in your arm than for $800.
If we kept the same policy we had last year, one thing I didn't share with you, last year was 61, $92,000. So that's to keep what you have right now. It's $92,000 to keep it with the same carrier, same agent.
How much did we have in claims last year? You know, think the report.
I do have it. I don't have that number handy. I can tell you I looked at those claims. I don't have it off the top of my head. I've got several years worth of claims history though. What happens is folks, you know, it's kind of a fine line. You want folks to know you've got it, but if everybody knows you've got it,
Yeah, then.
anything that happens, folks use it, and when they use it, your claims go up, and your premiums go up. So it's kind of a fine line to walk there, but,
Well, and then if you say, you know, if you look at your claims history and you think, okay, you know, we only had, you know, 24,000 in claims and 23,000 the year before, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, and you're paying 60,000 and, you know, in coverage, you know, is it worth it to
Is it
have
worth
it,
it
or
to
you
have
just
it?
pay it, you know, out of
I can
district
tell
dollars?
you, I looked at claims last week, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but I can tell you that monkey bars cost us quite a bit. Football and monkey bars are the two big ones.
Do that to 30 down. So, do that.
Football and monkey bars.
Well, Dave even has shows about those monkey bars, and I'm sure you've seen them on TV about schools are taking them out
Yeah.
just because of that.
Yeah. Do we have many still in the county, these monkey bars? They're all gone now, I don't know.
What would it cost to bring it up to 1,000?
You mean as far as the scheduled benefit? I'd have to look into that, Mr. Pate. Some of the things certainly pay up to 1,000. And I can get you a copy of the scheduled benefits. We can send that out and show you what the recommendation would pay. Certainly, we can send that to you. I've got it electronically. We can show you that it would pay this on this and this on that. You know, but you know, again, the majority of our folks have insurance. This is going to cover deductibles and co-pays, and it certainly would. If it didn't pay at all, it would cover a lot of it for parents. So, but I can get you that breakdown as to what it pays, and I can ask these companies on these student plans. They've got pretty much canned plans. You take the scheduled plan, the schedule A, which is maybe the best schedule plan, the Schedule B, which is the lesser schedule, or the usual and customary. I can't just pick a dollar amount, I don't think, but I can get that information to you. Let's take a look at it.
Let me ask something. I thought you had to be insured anyway now. Isn't that a requirement for it? I mean, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
However,
Well, I
Miss
know.
Berry, you have to have auto insurance.
yeah.
There are people without auto insurance.
Every day. But I'm just saying, when the state sends you letters like they sent my daughter, want to know,
What they said.
they sent her a letter asking if was she insured? Health insurance through the state. Because they want to get you through the state. Of course, she's not because has her own policy.
But it wasn't advertising for the.
No.
change.
This came from the Department of Insurance, Health and Human, Services in Frankfurt. And that's why, when you say everybody's got it, you know, I'm just assuming that everybody is supposed to have insurance now.
Yeah, I asked that question last year, and we talked about that. I mean, that exact thing. Because believe me, I'd love to save $60,000. But, you know, there's a cost with that. And, you know, I think if you all are not comfortable.
I think it's good what you're doing. The problem I'm having is the deductible, because on us, in my family deal, they raised this all up to 1,000 per deal, and everybody else I know has gone up to 1,000. They're all going to 1,000.
Well, I can tell you that those consumer-driven healthcare plans where you pay a lower premium, those deductibles are like $4,000 and $5,000.
Well, and I'm saying,
And it's
here we
just- I
are,
mean,
if
it's
you break
just-
an arm,
yeah.
1,000, they don't
It's not
cover
gonna
the
cover it.
deductible.
No, it won't.
But just remember, this policy that you're providing, you don't even have to provide, you only have to provide it on athletes.
This is not to cover 100% of the cost of someone. This is as something to just kind of help defray it
It
a little
does.
bit, yeah.
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 Because what you're saying, we do have a health savings account in HSA.
Yeah.
And so the first, I can't remember now, the first 6,000, first 30, I forget which one I've got, but I mean, we pay out of pocket, and usually it's around September or October where we finally start hitting that, okay, now we can start getting some of it paid.
And this is only on accidents too, it's important to know.
Yeah.
If we're liable, if we have an issue that's the district liability policy, we got a med-pay policy there that pays the first dollar. Okay, they wouldn't, you know, this is only on a slip and fall accident. You know, Johnny slips off the bus, getting off the bus, or falls in the monkey bars, or gets hurt in the ball game. it's an accident policy is what it is. For if there's a liability issue, then we've got MedPay that kicks in first dollar.
But again, this is just to help kind of defray
It is.
the sting of the bill.
That's correct. That's a good way to put it. Okay.
Tell you what, let's go on then to item 3H, the 2015-16 Central Kentucky Education Co-op, Kentucky Education Development Co-op membership.
We've been members of these two co-ops for a long time. CKEC since I got here, KEDC since shortly after that, I guess. You know, and we use both of those. Mr. Orr's pretty active in CKEC Superintendent's Organization. And I know April Peach and Cheryl uses their CKEC services extensively. CKEC is the more expensive of the two. It's about a 25 district group, I think. Mr. Orr, is that right?
Yes.
25, I will, there, but KEDC, we're recommending that you belong to both. We do get other benefits from KEDC. They have a broader bidding service. They bid a lot more things. And KEDC offers some unison, some bookkeeping services that are available. In the past, I know there's been some legal services. If we can only belong to one, absolutely we want to be with CKEC. But I do think, considering KEDC's $3,600, I think it's worth that to the district, if nothing else, just for the bidding services they provide.
We've made purchases off of some of the KEDC cooperative bids before, whether, I know some stuff in technology, and, I mean, they go all the way across the gamut, I'm sure, to gold paper and number 2 pencils.
They do. It's a little bit bigger organization than
Well,
CKEC.
see, these 8 co-ops, I think it is around the state, typically they were geographically located. Central Kentucky Education Co-op, KEDC is based out of Ashland. However, KEDC at one time had, out of 173 districts, about 120 that were members, give or take, because of that cooperative bidding piece that they're skilled at.
Right. You know, and if we need to source a vendor, that's who I go to. I can email Sharon Fields up there. If somebody's looking for a leg lamp, like from the, what's the movie? Somebody needs one in one of the schools, they're gonna be, that's who I'm going to find it.
Yeah.
Because they're really good at that. You know, there's some value in both of those, and we'll be recommending that we stay with both of those here on the 16th.
Okay. 3I Athletics Trainers Contract.
Sort of goes hand in hand with an item ago, the student accident insurance. You go to one of our ball games, you probably might see one of those trainers. You've got Cody at Nelson County, who's been there 3 or 4 years now. And I cannot think of the young guy's name, Thomas Nelson, off the top of my head now, but I've got it here in this folder. But clearly we need to keep a program of some kind. And what we'll be coming to you on the 16th with is what that recommendation is. I have a proposal from our current provider now, just to remind you, currently we're spending about $30,000 a year on trainers, about 15 at each location. But we turn around and get a donation back from Flagey Hospital of $30,000 a year.
That's
Yeah.
what I was.
Okay.
I was like, wait a minute, I thought we were
So,
good.
and that check came in yesterday, I think. But we're at the end of that 3-year arrangement. So we're looking to, okay, what's the picture gonna be for athletic training in our 2 high schools going forward? We have a proposal that, is a no cost to the board proposal again. There's some money going back and forth, but it's a net 0 cost to wash, and I'm expecting at least one more proposal. I don't have that one yet, but we'll have a recommendation on the night of the 16th, and we feel like, you know, it's going to be, there's not going to be a cost issue. It'll be, do you want to stay with the people you have now, or do you want to go in a different direction because of maybe other reasons? So we'll have a recommendation for you that night once we get the other proposal, and we'll talk about it on the 16th, but we will have that by then. I've been assured of that.
Okay.
We'll have that in place for July 1.
3J, the Family Resource Youth Service Center budget.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Carter
that's
Smith.
not you.
No, it's not.
Finally.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah. I was getting used to Ms. Hopkins.
I know it.
We have 4 centers, 4 family resource centers in Nelson County. And those allocations are based on free and reduced lunch in those schools. 3 of our schools get the maximum amount allowed by the grant. And this is just approval to accept those funds for these centers.
And this is something that we've talked about before, but it's been a little while. This is a budget that comes to us from the state. This is effectively not our money. When she says that we're approving to accept that money, that's basically what it is. And they dictate to us how we
Spend it.
divide that money among the centers. So that this is, we're asking for your approval later in the month, but if you don't approve it, then that $299,000 is going to stay with the state. We won't have any frisky units.
Tell us what all would they do with that money, just the.
Target at-risk kids, and through a variety of programs, through assistance, through drug, alcohol, education, suicide prevention.
But in all transparency, just like everything else we do, by far the bigger part of that money is going to pay the people who work in those positions. That their salaries comes out of this budget.
Of course, the frisks are also the ones that whenever there may be a family that approaches them in need, or it could be teachers in that building approaches that frisk and says, "Little Lulu, I've noticed, is there anything that you need to help out? Because it looks like Little Lulu needs some new clothes."
Yeah.
Okay. Little Lulu.
really have a hard time.
Item 4, College and Career Readiness. 4A, the Director of People Personnel, College and Career Readiness Coordinator.
And I put my name on this because Sarah took her turn last month. We've had some conversation about this to try to make sure everybody understands that we understand, and I certainly feel that this is not an ideal position where we're doing part-time in these 2 positions, but given our budget situation for this year, we feel like this is going to be a step forward in terms of the effectiveness, and then hopefully next year things look better and we are able to up the staffing, especially on the college and career readiness side, when that comes around. And this is one that, because we have talked about it before and because we would like to proceed in the search and interview process for this, I need your permission to post it with the approval of this job description. So I am going to ask that you consider making a motion and taking a decision on this action tonight.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Norman,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Payton. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Me,
Okay, so and was Ms. Green, were you an aye?
I'm an aye.
Okay, so 4 to 1 aye. And I would say, I believe we all also understand this, Barry, you're concerned, you want to make sure that the college career readiness is an emphasis.
And the DPP.
yes,
And the DPP.
because I said I would go along with this only if, on a trial basis, to see if it really, my important part is the college part. And I wanted, and I stated it before, and I told Anthony, I don't have a problem going along with it, only on trial. I wanted to see by December, the end of December, how many students were served in each category, and at the end of school term next year, I want to know the whole deal. I mean, I want to know everybody, the numbers. I want to know which one was on this end and which one was on taking care of on the career end. That's what reason why I did what I did.
Okay, so we'll go on then, so that was 4 to 1 aye. We'll go on to 4B, which is the school program review reports, which is Ms. Brown and Mr. Beck. And Ms. Powell? Or maybe Ms. Powell, Ms. Moore. Nope, nope.
on getting this pulled up, guys.
That's no problem.
Y'all get started and I'll catch up.
The program review report that we're going to bring you, we have 3 points that we want to touch on with these. Those are the bars that if you're looking at our indexes over here on the wall, those would be the light blue bars that we added 2 years ago. The program reviews went online 2 years ago. We self-report that information, so what we're giving you today is our estimate, but we don't anticipate there being any changes with this, because again, it is self-reported. We did give you some historical data on where we came from the 13-14 year all the way up to our current 15-16 year. The first thing I want to let you know is how it's divided. 77% of our testing data that we get back comes from next generation learners. 23% comes from the next generation programs, which essentially is program review, which is what we're talking about now. So this is about 23% of the information that we get back on our testing.
Can I
Sir?
jump in?
Absolutely, sir.
Especially for the new. So what that's saying is that on those total bars, forget the colors, but on those bars for the last couple of years, 77% of the height of that bar comes from kids taking tests over the course of the school year. What the program review is not kids taking tests, but it's teachers and administrators in the building going through the writing program, going through the arts and humanities program, going through practical living vocational skills, and what am I leaving out? World languages, and evaluating the instruction, evaluating the kind of work that students are doing, but they're really looking at teacher-produced products in terms of
Looking at
instruction,
evidence
and then looking at the student work that comes back as a result of that. So it's a different kind of assessment that keeps us accountable for those efforts, but doesn't have kids sitting taking exams. We used to take a humanities test, we used to take a practical living vocational skills test. We don't do that anymore. Instead, we look at the instruction.
Right. I remember sitting on site base, going over the program reviews.
Yes, fun times, I'm sure.
Yes. Actually, they did a really good job. I thought the coordinators did a really good job.
It's a big job, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
it is a huge job, yes.
Well, that was my second bullet, so that's...
Oh, sorry.
No, explain the difference between the programs and the next generation learner, and he did an excellent job of it, which is the way we try to boil it down for our parents in our SPDM is we try to let them know that the next generation learners is our product portion, and the program is what we offer. So it's our offerings and our products. And the last part that we have is we just wanted to show you that our scores are tracking up. The only thing to consider in the future is there's been talk about removing the program review scores from AMO, our annual measurable progress, and what they hope that we'll gain each year. There's been talk of removing that from that, so it may not be part of that next year. Are there any questions?
The only question I've got, it's not specifically about ours, but I had read an article just the other day where in doing some audits, statewide, some audits of the program reviews, that there was, if I read it correctly, that it seemed like there was a concern about some inflation of scores. Again, since it is self-scored.
Right.
And I do remember a few years ago, whenever we first started doing these, and it may have been you, Tim, you had said, we got some administrators that are saying, we know how we're going to be scored. Why should we not be scoring the best that we can? We already know what we should be doing. And I know that statewide, some of the concern was in some schools it may be, let's just give ourselves a 24. You know what? So have we heard anything as far as how we have done? Have we done a pretty accurate job of self-scoring?
The term accuracy is difficult to measure
Sure.
because quite frankly, even the ones that they did the audit on and they labeled some as, we feel like those are a little self-inflated. The problem with that is KDE gives you a rubric, but that rubric, it contains vague verbiage. So what they don't give you is they don't give you measurable cut scores like they used to. You remember portfolios where we used to have, and we would rate those as proficient or distinguished. But not only did they give us a rubric to follow, we also had those exemplar pieces that we could pull out and say, when we say this is a distinguished, this is what we mean.
Yeah.
Well, this piece is missing from program reviews.
Right.
We have the rubric, but we don't have, well, when you say that, give me an example of what that means. And so that's probably going to be the next step from KDE if they're going to continue this evaluation process of it. They'll have to give us some type of cut score or some type of a rubric with that information.
Something that we have an idea of what it is we're looking for. It's kind of like, Miss Pop, is that a canary yellow or a sun yellow top she's got on? Well, it kind of depends on what your definition of the yellow spectrum is. Same thing you're talking about there.
Provide multiple opportunities for
Sure.
students to experience multicultural activities. Well, what is
Yeah.
many opportunities? Is
Is
that
it 3?
Is it the 2 that we
Is it
had this
12?
year, or is it daily, or?
Okay.
And we don't have that at this
Well,
point.
and I completely agree. I mean, accuracy is, especially in this, because it is such a kind of a squishy item, these program reviews. I was just kind of curious, are we feeling confident? We feel comfortable that we are?
Yes, we feel very good about where we are, we have artifacts that can justify that in our minds. KDE may disagree with us, and we'll make adjustments if they do.
Sure.
The only concern that we have in the future is the world language piece. That came online for the high schools this year. Middle and elementary had to report this year. We were not actually scored. So if we had been scored with the information we provided, the scores would not have been as successful as we'd like it to be. It's a pretty heavy burden from that rubric.
We did, and you're going to see in just a minute, some information about the work that we did this week, and with professional learning on Monday and Tuesday, and we spent, I think, some pretty considerable time with several of those program reviews, going back through the program reviews and really talking about making sure that what we describe and how we scored ourselves is reflective of reality in the classroom. So I think that's something that we're trying to make sure that these guys take a look at them. They're approved at the site-based council. So on some level, if we have a problem with it, it's not approved by us. We have to go back and address it with the staff. And so they go through a review process to help ensure that that's all aligned. But then we want to make sure we're staying on top of that issue. Something we want to be careful with.
Yeah, what you said just a moment ago, Tim, about the portfolio, the first year or two of the math portfolios, even though we had descriptors of what a apprentice or novice apprentice proficient distinguished looked like, people still went, which one do I put it in? After about 3 or 4 years, as we started getting examples of what they looked like, then we could go, oh, that is canary yellow, look, it matches up, so that's where we put it, yeah. And so that makes sense that probably over that next year or so, we'll probably start to see some similar things with the program reviews. 4C, preschool program approval.
This form just shows that you all still want to do 10 sessions a week, so we half-day preschool, 5 days a week. So we're just approving that, and the teachers and the instructional assistants that are going to be working there, they have to have their credentials.
Well,
So
we hope so, because we just approved an expansion of the preschool program.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what we'll see as far as approval on the regular board agenda. Okay. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on then to 5, which is professional growth and effectiveness system, and 5A is principal professional growth and effectiveness system toolbox update.
Yes, I only have 2 points that I wanted to share with you. You've already approved the actual certified evaluation plan. We are finishing up the formation and the formatting of the principal toolbox. And what we've done is we've taken all the different forms that Mr. Orr and the principals will use throughout the year, and instead of putting those in different locations and using different forms, it is all on a single Google Doc or Google Slide, as the case may be. And so what they do is they can go through the entire process going back to the same file each time, so that he can go back to the same file each time too. So it simplifies the process, and we're hopefully also unifying it as we simplify it and making it more meaningful. The principal just goes through and he'll do a self-reflection, or she'll do a self-reflection. Then they'll create their 4 targeted goals. Then from this, Mr. Orr will monitor that through the site visits, and there are 6 standards with which they touch on here. The only thing that's really different here is these are not the normal ISLIC standards that the principals usually, or national standards that we follow. These are the ones that Kentucky has created, and there's 6 of them. I won't go through and read them. You have all of those with you. But the reason they double dip, you'll see those 6 standards on 6 forms 2 different times, is because there's 2 site visits throughout the year. So we go through all of those 6 pages for the site visits. After that, what they'll have is their professional learning log. That is what Ms. Brown and I developed together to tie all the professional learning in the same piece with their evaluation. And then the final piece of that will be the summary of evidence form. And this is the piece that we will have to duplicate this in the SITS program that's online, which we're hoping that we will not have to use in totality, but just for that final summary piece. We're hoping that our Google Docs will be approved to use for everything else except for that final piece there. And just wanted to share, we finalized that and we have it all formatted for you now. That's the last piece of the puzzle.
This is a little on the geeky side, but Tim and this crew have really saved all of us about 6,000 clicks in terms of trying to navigate SITS, and of course with changes coming in SITS, which I'm sure you'll hear more about next month, we're going to be a whole lot. We're going to waste a lot less time and be much more efficient. Thank you. It must be getting late. So we're going to be a lot more efficient in getting this work done. It's been exciting to click back and forth between about 3 different
And we
windows.
have this.
It'll go online the first of next year.
Okay.
And this is the piece that, if I remember right, last month you said that there's some other districts that have been knocking on your door going, can we see that?
We have several. I think we're going to have a lot more too after we go through the final process and they see that when he says the 6,000 clicks, that doesn't include the spinning wheel of SITS where you wait and wait for it to load. So.
Okay, going on to 5B, professional learning report, June 1st and 2nd.
As you know, on June 1st and 2nd, you gave us a gift of being able to spend it doing professional learning with all teachers and staff, K through 12. Our purpose was to enhance, strengthen, and build capacity with all of our personnel, K-12. We had everyone present. The venues were the K-5 staff was at Thomas Nelson, 612 was at Old Kentucky Home, and the special education staff was at Foster Heights. On June 1st, everyone reported to Nelson County High School Auditorium for a session with Dr. Orr to ignite our vision for becoming a district of distinction. And then we transitioned, and at 9:15 to 9:30, the work began. The elementary school focus, I want to ask Tim to take over there and talk to you about his work with the elementary schools.
Yes, we were fortunate enough to be at Thomas Nelson. I want to say thank you to the staff there. They did an excellent job. Our purpose there was to take a look at our standards and our assessments. We're looking at building an assessment bank because down the road, as Mr. Orr detailed, the District of Distinction Plan, or Distinguished District more appropriately, the first thing that we have to have in place is we've got to have effective knowledge of our standards, and we've got to have common assessments to be able to measure those. Where we stood previously was we had roughly, I'm estimating about 59 common assessment questions that had not been protocoled. Before June 1st and 2nd, we got together with the principals at all levels, K through 12, and we developed a protocol by which every assessment standard would be viewed, and so that everybody could go through it and we would all be looking at the same point so that we know that the product that we got at the end was a rigorous, good test question. And so, so those 59 assessment questions that we came in were not protocol. Those are ones that we had created before through the ICs, through the work that we had done previous to last year. Some were good, some not so much. I'm happy to report that at the end of 2 days, our teachers in grades K through 5 were able to get together at grade level teams using Google Docs. We had over 118 people in the same documents, and we only had one piece of downtime. I was so excited about that. But they were able to create 261 assessment questions. And those are 261 assessment questions that have been protocoled and peer reviewed, so they are ready to go out. So we have made huge inroads in the creation of common assessments to be able to move forward with next year in just those 2 days, because that was all we had to do those 2 days. So the feedback was outstanding. The two pieces of feedback I do want to share with you are, do you have a deeper understanding of the Common Core standards from your work today? We had 118 responses that first day, and from 1 not at all to 5 being very much. The average was a 4.3, and the other one was the protocol helpful in your use? And again, from 1 to 5, the average was 4.3. So the teachers were very, very excited about the work they did and working with the teams. And then the last piece was this will form the basis of the cadres that we'll try to use next year. We're going to leverage the electronic work we did in Google Docs to help those cadres, to get those teachers at New Haven to be able to work those teachers at Bloomfield, because we're just geographically so large that having a 4 o'clock meeting doesn't work all the time. So we're really trying to leverage that Google know-how and electronic means. So, any
Okay,
questions?
will this help in determining, well, it's bound to help, but when students from different areas of the county go to one school, that all of them are in the same
Well,
boat?
we already have.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
Mhm.
that 2 + 2 is 4.
Right. We have a common
Simplify,
district
but you know
pacing
what?
guide that
Yes.
we're already following, and that goes back to several years ago when that was a concern, to make sure that once they go from New Haven and they go to Bloomfield, they're still getting the same things, and Bloomfield can still expect the same things that New Haven did. The next step in that, after that common pacing guide, which helps us detail what we're going to teach and when we're going to teach it, is common assessment, so that the way Bloomfield assesses it or tests it is the same
way.
as it was in New Haven. So they'll be able to take that New Haven data, and it means the same thing as the Bloomfield data.
That's what I'm
So-
saying,
so
that's part of
absolutely.
it.
Yes, ma'am.
That's important to me, is to make sure that when these kids enter the high school level, that they are capable of doing the high school work without dropping the ball,
Right.
or having to relearn or reteach something that they either weren't taught or they need. Okay, that's good. That's what I'm at.
And the last piece that we have up here is, as you know, whenever we pull all the elementary, we can break them down into some groups, but there's those outliers. And one of the biggest outliers that we had was a group of about 19 that were our interventionists. And these are the people that provide interventions for the RTI system. So rather than have them go through the English language arts or math standards, what we felt would be best for them is work that specifically targeted interventions. So the first day we had level literacy intervention system, which we're excited to say that every K-5 school now has that. It's another attempt that we're trying to get all of our children on grade level before they leave 3rd grade. Just like what you guys did with Lexi and Reading Plus, Fontes and Pinnell's level literacy system is the next step in that. And then day 2 was about Orton Gillingham training. And I want to say a special thank you to Miss Morley at Bloomfield, our own staff member. And we didn't have to get somebody flown in this time. So we're actually, the ball is starting to roll. We're starting to see that momentum now.
Good.
15 seconds of what is RTI?
A response to intervention. Response to intervention. We need to, a child is behind, we need to intervene. What is our response?
Thanks.
Next is our special education report from Ms. Paul.
The special education content teachers went to the content groups. So if they taught elementary, they went with Tim. If they taught high school, they went with Kim. I had the related service people, the instructional assistants, and then our PAS staff and our MSD staff is what I had at Foster Heights. So what we did is worked on basic deficits of the students and learned how to write the IEP with the goals and objectives and everything lined up for that student individually, so that we're looking at the needs of each student. And then they learned how to do some systematic instruction. They were able to practice that. They were also able to practice video modeling, which was taught by one of our teachers that is a doctoral student at the University of Kentucky. So he taught that with them. They liked being able to work together, and every one of them left with a schedule that we had put together for the trainings that are coming up through the summer before school starts. So they know when they are, what time they are, where they're going to be, and who's going to do the training.
And the high schools and middle schools made it OKH in 7 content areas. Arts and humanities, we had a teacher from Fayette County and a professor from Asbury, Michelle Williams and Jill Campbell. English language arts was an education recovery specialist, Tammy Stevens. Math worked with Mark Helton and Debbie Wagner from the CKEC Service Center. Practical living, career studies worked with Lisa Shaw, who is also at the Service Center. Science was Terry Rhodes, she's the science consultant. Social studies is Hetty Larson and Debbie Wagner. Hetty is a recovery specialist, and Debbie is with the CKEC Service Center. And world languages was Alfonso Nunez, who is the world language consultant from KDE. So we broke them out in groups, grades 6 through 12. We talked about the program review, the arts and humanities, practical living, and world languages used the program review as their frame. So they worked backwards. They took the standards of the program review, looked at their most current program review, worked with that consultant and with other consultants to see, are we close, are we far away, how are we measuring up to what KDE says is where we should be as far as proficient or distinguished. They learned that we have a little bit of work to do. The world languages piece, we want to eventually go to a K-12 model for world language and start with some choices for world language in kindergarten, as some other districts in the state do. Right now we only have that 6 through 12. So because we have it 6 through 12, we want it to be very good. So we had all teachers teaching world language or a cultures course to work with Alfonso, and then on Tuesday morning we had all principals come in so that he could talk to them about how we're going to structure this program, K through 12, so that they would have a head start on how can we begin to talk about this district-wide and get this in place. So those sessions were all very useful to the teachers as well as the principals. Change slides to the next one.
Sorry.
The secondary work.
Sorry, that was my fault.
It's okay. Secondary work included, we revisited our standards deconstruction to ensure that we have a common model, 6 through 12 in each content area. So it gets at what you were talking about, Ms. Berry. Does 6th grade math look at New Haven the same as 6th grade math looks at Boston? So that was one way to calibrate that piece. We want rigorous learning targets so that we are challenging all students at high levels. Backward design model, look at what we're supposed to get as far as proficiency or distinguished, and then build it backwards so that we ensure that. Review and refinement for a program review, quality world language, engaging classroom teachers and learning strategies. We worked on pacing guides as well, common assessments, quality assessment questions, and vertical and horizontal articulation of the curriculum, both for content and for coursework. As we were moving forward, we are looking at student-led conferencing with our students. I wanted to apply that model also to the professional learning, so that the principals and the teachers could tell me what they needed to enhance their practice based on the data from the students. So the students are weak in this, how can we strengthen teacher skills in that area? So that's the way we put these sessions together for June 1st and 2nd. They did work very, very hard. This is the hardest work that you can do. You could tell that they were dragging at the end of the day because we were all thinking so hard and, working from so many different levels. Many documents and products were uploaded to the repositories where all teachers may access the information. Every content area has its own repository. So whatever they created during these 2 days, they uploaded there, and they can all access those. And then this work and these products were produced by Nelson County teachers for Nelson County students. So it's the perfect example of teaching and learning for all. And at the end, the feedback from our teachers, and I can hook you up with their comments and their scores that they, the spreadsheet that they used. Some of their comments included, "Thanks for bringing us together. We've learned much from each other. Please provide more opportunities." That was the number one mantra across all of the sites was, "Let us do this again. Let us network and collaborate with each other from across the district." They learned new strategies and they're anxious to try them out for next year. The food was great. They were very happy with the food. The temperature we had, we got them too hot a little bit and too cold a little bit, but we'll get that together. There were many tired faces, tired smiles, and they all said thank you as they left. And then a side note, I contacted a teacher today to see if I could talk to them tomorrow, and she said, "I'm sorry, I'm busy tomorrow. I'm networking with my new friend across the district, and we're working on lesson plans and pacing guides for next week." So she came to see me this afternoon. So it was a very worthwhile project, and we certainly thank you for giving us those 2 days as a gift to get started for next year. It was well worth it.
No, we thank you all, and Mr. Moore too. I just want to make sure that we're all in this together more than we've ever been together. You know, I've sat and watched it, and most of us have, but I've had firsthand. You know, when you work in the system and you know you've got not problems, I won't say problems, but we've got different people going at different speeds, put it that way, or different teachers doing it different things. And then when your kids get to the 9th grade, they're going, "Why does he know it and I don't know it?" Or "Why does she know it and I don't know it?" Well, I don't know. You went to school, you never missed a day, so I don't know why you don't know that. But I'm glad that it's working. I'm glad, and I hope it does, because the kids deserve it. You know, I want these kids to be ready for college or career. And more now than any time, that's what we need to do. We need to pull together and get these kids going in life. And sounds good to me. It sounds great. I'm glad. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your all's hard work on leading that
Thank you.
effort too.
Yes. Yes.
Glad to hear the teachers are involved, and it's where a lot of answers are. Glad to see that.
Yes.
Let me ask, before we move into agenda item 6, would we like to take about a 5 to 7 minute restroom break? Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, because we've all been sitting here, I thought that's where you were headed a minute ago. We've been through some water. And I know that means you all have to wait for just a little bit, but
Y'all gotta go? Go.
I just have 2 points to bring before you tonight. One of the things is that we created a district-wide form for all the schools to use, so that as you looked at the master schedules, they would all have a similar look and feel to it. And 2, we'll be bringing this to you in the actual board meeting for approval. All of these have been approved by the local SPDMs, and they all do exceed the minimum 1,062 required hours within our 174 days. That's all I have.
Brilliantly done.
Good job.
6B, instructional fees.
At a prior meeting, at some point, I think you had asked to see the fees at the schools. So we begin with the elementaries and middles. You see the school name, the item, what purchase is, and then the charge for that is $30 for those schools. For the high schools, this is Nelson County High. You see the items that need to have a fee, or the programs that need to have a fee, and then the charge per program or course.
Did the parking permits drop, or did my son like sucker me out of extra money?
I suffered you out of money.
They dropped.
Shoot.
Ms. Brown, real quick, I can't ask, back on the elementary, is that a fee, or is that the maximum overall what the school supplies should cost a student? You understand?
To answer, I do and understand the difference. I'll have to get back to
What you
you.
said.
It's the latter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember back, it's been what, about 5 years ago, Frank and Nikki and Adam probably were still on the board. There was concern that the school supply list continued to grow, And I think it was Mr. Hall had said, we need to try and keep that at the elementary and even the middle school level in that $25, $30 range.
That was before my time.
Yeah, and so I just want to make sure, because while it says charges there, it's not necessarily a charge as much as we ask our elementary and our middle school teachers that whatever you say are the school supplies students need, that it needs to remain kind of underneath that ceiling there.
Okay. I mean,
Okay, I just wanted to verify that.
and then this is the fee schedule for Thomas Nelson.
Why is their parking more valuable than Nelson County's?
Newer asphalt.
Maybe you come in and drive a different way. That just,
No,
okay.
There are going to be, and we've talked about this a little bit before, not since this time last year at least. There are going to be differences between those schools, and really, it's kind of where they just.
The operating costs are different.
Yeah, well, the operating costs are really pretty much the same.
So say what's
And
the
what-
operating cost in parking?
What Thomas Nelson is doing is they're using more Section 6 money to cover those things than you would see at Nelson
Yes,
County
yeah,
High
okay.
School. They may be using their Section 6 money for something different.
else. Okay.
So we're working, and Kim and I talked about this afternoon. These are, there are going to be differences between schools, but we're working on bringing these closer together, and we have a couple of things that we think can induce Nelson County to shift a little bit. So, and it's not a criticism, it's just everybody's eyebrows go up, and I would prefer that we found other ways to address it.
Okay. Okay.
Good deal. Thank you, Ms. Brown.
But I will tell you, the one thing I'll tell you, and I'm sorry, when you look back at this, my experience is, no matter which of these you look at, these are bargains relative to what you would
Oh, I
find in
know.
other high schools. Both schools have done a good job of reducing these fees over the years. And so I am pleased at the way they have worked on that.
Because as far as I'm concerned, the biology and chemistry, that's really low. Any of the sciences, that's really low, people. That amazes me. It's that low.
They have worked for us on this.
Yeah.
And we're making progress.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Powell, you have scheduled that training sessions.
Sure can.
Again, please. Thank you.
So 6C, our favorite person, Miss P, who always makes the great food. Food services, community eligibility provision.
Okay. I think we talked about this one before, just briefly. We mentioned it and said, what is it and what can we do with it? So this year, actually, Mr. Orris come to me and asked, can we look into it a little deeper and see if it's actually something we can do. I'd already sort of started doing that on my own because all of the preliminary numbers went into the state on April 1st. So I kind of had an idea then if we'd be able to make it. The provision, it allows schools that qualify to serve all the meals for free, breakfast and lunch, to all kids regardless of their ability to pay. There's several factors that go into it that I'm not going to convolute the conversation with unless you want to ask specifically. The main thing.
Tell us what the factors are. I don't think it'll take a lot of
All of them?
explanation to say
Okay.
what the factors
All right.
are. but-
It's the percent of identified students. So an identified student would be a student that receives some type of benefit from the state or the federal government. It might be food stamps, Medicaid, things of that nature. They become what's considered an identified student. It's based on enrollment. So you have to take that into consideration because the threshold for a site to be eligible is 40%. So that would mean that 40% of the student population has to be an identified student. Meals that are served. We get into the numbers. The reason why the number of meals served is important is because we have to know in the end when the breakout comes as to what percentage of reimbursement we're going to get per meal, is there sustainability? So that's a factor. The average daily participation, that's a factor. Right now, I'm basing this on 1 month's data, And if we're at 80% right now, that's what I'm basing the data on. If we lose 5% of our participation, see, it gets a little carry there. You also want to use that average daily participation thinking it's going to go up because now we're providing free meals and more kids are going to come to school eating because parents are going to say, no, you're going to go to school and eat it. It's free. Right? The percentage of meals that are free currently and the percentage of meals that are paid currently. Because paid, for example, that one's really easy to see because we're getting money, cash flow, revenue comes in the door for those meals. You have to take that into consideration because you're no longer getting that cash flow. Okay? And the way this provision works as far as a reimbursement, based on that identified student population, that percentage, you get a certain percent of your reimbursement paid back at the free rate or the paid rate. Okay? So let's say it's an 80-20 split. So 80% of my reimbursement rate is going to be at $2.98, which is the federal rate. Then 20% of my reimbursement is going to be at 30 cents, regardless of whether I had that many paying students before. Nothing matters anymore. That's what they're going to give me based on my identified student population. So we talked about the current paid revenue that we currently get, so that was the factor, and then the current reimbursement revenue that we get. So because when it goes 80-20 or 60-40, things, I mean, the numbers start to flip pretty quick, regardless of whether it's free, reduced, paid, and how you're getting that cash flow. There's 4 schools, and I've sent the information into KDE and had them look at it and give me their advice. They say that for success, 50% or higher should be your identified student population within the building for sustainability. We have 4 schools that meet that criteria. We've got Bloomfield Elementary School, Boston, Horizons, and New Haven. Bloomfield Elementary School has the lowest percentage at 50%, or right there, at the line. The 4 of them combined into a group look to sustain themselves, and actually, if we can bring our participation up 5% as a group, we look to make money. Not a substantial amount, around $900 a month, let's say.
But we don't lose.
But we
That's
don't
the big
lose.
thing.
We're looking, but $900 to me is, I don't even really want to factor it, you know, because that's way too close to even really to consider it. So obviously, so that's a group of 4. So then you start looking at, okay, how do we bring up that percentage as a group to get more reimbursement back on the higher side, on the free side? Well, then you have to start dropping off your schools that have a less percentage of those identified students. So the first one, if we're going to drop anything out of the group, the first one we drop out of the group would be the Bloomfield Elementary School at 50%. When we do that, and I work the numbers that way, we go up to like $1,200 a month. It's like it's not even a big amount, okay? It's not like we're talking thousands here to drop them. To me, if we're gonna do it, I'd go all 4. I wouldn't start looking at cutting here, cutting there, because the money's so.
It's not enough.
Yeah, it's not enough. The money's too close already. You might think, well, what does it look like if you do district-wide? Because it only takes 1 school, 1 feeder school in that area to qualify. Well, we've got around the district, we can do it. We've got enough feeders in the right places, we can do this whole district. But as you do that, and you have some schools out there, 30%, 34%, 40%, your overall average, you know, comes down, obviously. When I work those figures as district-wide, there's absolutely no way. It's showing like $54,000 loss monthly to do that. It's crazy bad. So I don't think that right now that that's something that I would suggest. I can't promise you that that's how bad it would be, because I think with great management and increasing participation, working hard to market the program, you can always have a la carte
sales that go towards subsidizing these programs. We can do more catering, more events. There's lots of things we can get into like a business, to make up the difference. But I think that's a huge chunk. I think we need to start at the small and reasonable. Yeah, small and reasonable and say, does this work? Then start adding. Now, feel good about the fact that when you sign on, you're signing on for 4 years, but you can bail out after the first year. Also feel good that when you start in on your initial year, if our identified student percentage right now, let's say it was 60%, okay? Year 3, all of a sudden it drops down to 40%, the economy's booming and everything's great. Now we're at 40%. You don't lose your original 60, okay? So that continues on with you. So they can give you more, but they can't take it back. But you can always bail out after your first year's over.
So it's like, I mean, you're grandfathered in for that 4-year time frame of whatever that first year percentage was.
That's correct.
And is this something that goes in 4-year renewals? I'll use that phrase.
Yes.
So if the 4 years was great, we saw benefits of it, but we didn't really see that we could spread it further across the district for reasons like you've explained, then maybe that next 4 years, instead of being 60%, it might be 50%, or it might be 70%. But that's a reset of that rate.
Right.
Okay.
And you always, if you each year, if it goes up for you, the percentage goes up, then you get to start there again. And go the next 2 years with that one, if the next year after that goes back down. So it continues to go up.
It can always get better,
Right.
but it can't get
They
worse
can't
on
let
us
it
during
get
the 4 years.
Right, can't let it get worse on you in 4 years. Annually, you can add schools. So if it does better than what we're thinking, and if we're adding one more school, and when we added that school, now we're looking at losing $1,200 again, but yet this one over here, instead of making $1,000, it ended up making $2,000 because we didn't raise it up 5% participation, we raised it up 10% participation. So we've got 10% more of the kids in that
So
school.
you made up the difference between what you lost. and
Exactly,
what
and
you-
that's what I'm saying, with awesome marketing and great management. And the managers in this district, in those schools, they're awesome. They are conscientious, and they try so hard, and they do what they need to do. So, and I know that they would love this program. They see it firsthand, these kids that need to eat maybe aren't eating because they can't afford it. They're just right there on that fine line between qualifying and not qualifying, so.
Didn't LaRue County do this?
I believe she did start doing this.
I don't believe she did. This is how I thought about this a couple of years ago when I said something about it. And I know it's a lot of investigated because it's virtually new.
Yes.
Yes. But when I was told LaRue County was eating free, and I'm going, wait a minute, now how do you do that? When she's telling me.
Right.
I said, it wouldn't hurt to check into that
Yeah.
deal.
At Frankfurt, when I was there, we did the program. We started out using the K through 8 first year because we were a little bit, shy of going all the way at first. We wanted to see if it was going to work for us. And then come the second year, we added the high school, so it's district-wide there now. It's a little confusing at first, obviously. When you have, you have kids at the elementary that are getting it, but you've got kids over here at the high school that aren't, but all that gets worked through with good communication. It takes a lot of help from the building administration during open house and things like that to explain what's happening. There's a different form that gets collected at those schools because you no longer use that free and reduced lunch in your application. So those are all things that have to be discussed. Bottom line is we're providing a service that's next to none. And, just something that, when I'm looking at it, if I'm not seeing big red numbers, I can't imagine why I wouldn't, suggest doing it.
Now I know this is a big thing with kids, is the menus the same?
Yes.
I mean, are they gonna be the same?
It
That's-
follows,
that's
it still
coming here?
follows the federal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing you can change about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's still the same.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's not two different foods.
No.
It's
No,
what
but
it
I'm
is.
thinking more, you know what I'm thinking, more of the stuff that kids will eat more
Right.
than some of that other new stuff that they were put on the tables last year and stuff. I mean, put on menus last year.
Well, you know, you'd be surprised when they're pushed a little bit to try things.
Well, when you're hungry though.
Right, but when you're pushed to, you know, like, for example, the ones that always pack their lunch. Maybe if mom pushes or dad pushes just a little bit harder to go to school and try things, you know,
For free.
Because
free.
now,
For
because
free.
now I'm not buying the Lunchable or whatever.
There you go. Well, because you're gonna eat free. I mean, you can go to school and see what they got.
Yeah, I know too, you asked me about like the LaRue County standard. I think while we like to do it across the whole district, of course, the reading prevents us from being able to do that. I think a lot of times, like Frankfurt Independent, I hear some of the Northern Kentucky Independents, that's typically where we hear more of the community eligibility program being district-wide is most of the time in those independent districts, isn't
Right.
it?
well, they're smaller and,
Sure.
right, you know, and they can
So the
afford to.
dynamic's a little bit different.
It is.
Right,
Yeah.
it is, but, you know, I know that none of us would ever, you know, shut the door on the idea that we could add more as time went along, so, but I think that being smart, you start here.
Little.
Yeah.
Mhm.
with
Small,
a-
work
with a-
your way
with
up.
a good foundation,
Mhm.
and then we can add as we go, and as long as it's not, we're not trying to make money with any of these, programs, we're just trying to sustain ourselves and sustain the population and give them what they need.
Well, the lunch program, you're not supposed to make money.
Right.
It's supposed to maintain. It's
It's
supposed to be maintainable.
It's supposed to maintain itself, and if it does make money, the money goes back into the same program.
That's right.
So, and that's what we're doing. If we've got a little bit in the bank, then that's okay, because we're gonna be putting it back into the program by trying something like this.
Yeah.
So this would then come as for an approval at the regular board meeting then and be something we have to,
It will need to,
a motion
because
and all that.
we should have given, by May 15th, we should have given them our intent. And we were just a little late and, you know, just getting through the discussions, basically. We have until June 30th,
Okay,
but we would need to make a final decision at the board
Okay.
meeting,
Okay.
so that I can get everything into them.
What's the percentage of free and reduced lunches at Boston and New Haven?
Now, do you want to know how, what the percentage is if they are identified or altogether, or both? Or both?
Yes, so.
I knew somebody asked, I can compare it. Okay, so Boston, 52% of the students at Boston are identified students.
So but that's both free and reduced lunch students, is that right?
No, sir. That's 52% are identified students.
But they might not necessarily
They're-
qualify for the free or reduced lunches, or they do.
That means they qualify for free for a reason other than an income application.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's an example again, what you said, one of them comes to you, if one comes to you and says, I'm hungry.
Right,
It happens
right.
more than people think.
Okay.
What was the other school you asked?
New
New
Haven.
Haven.
New
New
Haven, 56. Yeah, 56. If you want to know, for the school altogether, Boston has 62% free and reduced, and that would include your identified students and your income application students. New Haven has, they're at 73% when you combine all of them. So, you know, Boston, 62% qualify for income or being identified, and 52% are identified, so.
Big these kids get them, and that's hungry kids don't learn.
Get them fed.
Thank you.
Good deal.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Item 6D, which is Head Start Memorandum of Agreement.
This is the same agreement that we bring every year. It's just what we're going to do with Head Start to be a team with them, how we're going to provide services for the identified kids at the Head Start program. So I'll just bring it for you as board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Powell.
And the moment you've all been waiting.
Come on down,
I
Sarah
say we
Wilson.
call it a night now, because Wilson's waited all this time.
Oh, God.
as she gets very angry.
We have gone through these, and I'm pleased to say that most of these are real simple changes in language that bring us into closer into conformity with state and federal law, so it's pretty quick, but we'll quit when we get tired of it.
And let me ask, are all these first readings?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm going to skip some, but
Okay.
all that we discussed will be
Tonight will
first
be
reading.
first readings,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, the first one, which is on pages 1 and 2, and I'll mention this just on the first one. There's a set of policies that target certified personnel, and there's a set that target classified personnel. I pulled them together because they're basically the same policy, they're just targeting two different populations. So we're looking at pages 1 and 2 and pages 15 and 16 and discussing them simultaneously. But this is a legal change which now requires that individuals identified at high risk for TB must undergo a TB skin test or blood test. It also allows us to now take medical exam records electronically if it requires the same data. And that's for both sets of those. Now, I'm just going to slide on quickly unless you all tell me to stop. Okay, I am going to skip 3 through 6, those next two sets that are paper clipped together. I want to get more information from KSBA before we discuss those. Moving on to page 8 through 11, there are two sets of policies there that are also legal changes. The Office of Civil Rights says that the language that has been marked out makes employees feel that they might not have to respond to suspected harassment or discrimination, and it's deleting that language because any employee that's aware of the possibility must report it. So it removed that sentence that indicated there wasn't accountability there. Okay, skipping on to page 12 through 14. You all know, because of Tim, their discussion tonight, but it says we must establish a statewide PGES for certified employees, and you all have already seen that, what that
We've
looks
got
like.
the best one in the state.
Absolutely. Skipping to page 25 through 27, it requires districts to have a code of conduct for procuring any property using federal funds, which avoids a conflict of interest in the person making that decision and the company that might be selected. 28 through 30 is also a legal change. It requires that the best available severe weather safe zone be identified in consultation with state and local authorities. We already did that. All schools pulled them in last fall and had them do the consultation, but this now says we are required to. And this is for the planning purposes for severe weather. Page 31 is also legal. It's basically saying the same thing, that we've got to involve the local authorities in identifying those safe locations, but this is for the procedure part of it. Okay, page 32 requires that children under 8 and between a certain height be secured in child booster seats when they're transported in vehicles that carry or designed for 9 or fewer passengers. I checked with Todd this afternoon. We do not have any of those vehicles in the district. But it does require it if we were to acquire
That's
some.
when we got rid of those extended vans, wasn't it? Yeah.
Correct. Page 33 is also a legal change, and it clarifies that if a child has a service animal, that we would allow that animal on the district transportation without requiring documentation. Pages 34 and 35 is also legal. It now says that we must notify everyone that they have a right to file a complaint regarding discrimination, and it tells them who to notify if they've been discriminated against. Page 36, the language has been removed regarding the use of food and beverages as a reward, because the language is being moved to the wellness policy, which we'll be discussing later on. So they're just taking that language out of this one and adding it to another. And it actually said to make it easier for food service audits is the reason. Page 37 and 38 is also a legal requirement, basically saying the same as the other, that there has to be a code of conduct for the procurement. Again, to avoid a conflict of interest, this is involving food service purchases. Page 39 is legal. Professional standards are required for the state and local school nutrition personnel, and it's just saying that we will follow those. Page 40 is recommended, since the state's request for a 4-year waiver extension was granted, meaning that kids do not have to be transported at their request to another school. Pages 41 through 48, you all already approved that at our last board meeting. However, the only difference on that, page 47 changes that the retention of E-rate records will go from 5 to 10 years. So it's what you all have already approved. They just didn't clean it up because they knew you were in the process of looking at it, that one thing has been changed, that the records must
So
be.
this would be
That's the
reading
second
two?
reading on
Yeah.
this policy.
Okay, pages 49 and 50, school calendar. It is a legal requirement also. It's now totally defined what the school calendar must look like, with more specific information about snow days, makeup days. And again, I'm not going through all the details of what it looks like, but you all can review it, but it is now required. Page 51 is legal. It now requires that the district office keep a master bail schedule for each school starting next year. Pages 52 through 53 is recommended, again, because of the No Child Left Behind waiver extension that was granted across the state. So it removed certain language from that. Pages 54 through 55, it ensures that the tuition charges are the same for all children that enter our preschool or primary school. If they're paying tuition, that we don't charge certain rates for certain ages. Page 56 through 57, you all already approved that you were going to move the dropout age from 16 to 18, but it's updated the language in attendance requirement to say they're now required to attend through age 18, where they can't drop out until age 18. Pages 58 through 60 now requires that the district wellness policy include specific progress and that all schools will now develop a wellness plan. I think most of our schools, site-based councils have already done that, but this now makes it a requirement that they have one. Page 61, student health care exams can be reported electronically. It's the same as the one we discussed with personnel, but this one relates to students. Page 62 through 63 is a legal requirement or a legal change. And we already do this, but it requires the board to maintain proof that any unlicensed personnel that perform certain medical procedures must be trained, and we already do that. Page 64 is a legal change also. Requires that a school employee who has been trained must be present anytime that we have students involved in activities to assist the child in certain medication such as insulin, seizure medications, and trained personnel must be at all activities.
Now, let me ask a question.
Yes,
When the nurse has gone to these meetings, who usually does this at schools?
there are people trained within the schools. The nurses train some personnel.
Might be secretaries, might be coaches.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Could be a principal.
Could be,
That's fine.
but usually there's several people trained.
Okay.
Page 65, cleans up the language regarding training for the administration of medication for diabetes. It's taken out that line, but it just makes it a little clearer on what the guidelines are. But since that no longer applies to that policy.
Okay.
Page 66 through 67 will now require that the board select a child abuse training program, that KDE will provide a list. There are a lot of employees that will be required to complete this training by January 2017. Page 68. Materials can be excluded for legitimate educational reasons. You know, I mean, that's all it basically says, that the principal has the right
To refuse or to
to
allow?
Page 69 and 70 is recommended that students who are taking pictures or videoing maybe a fight in the hallway, or is this one we wanted to wait on?
I think this is
This is cheating.
This is the student
The student
version
part.
of the staff one that we pulled because we want to get some more information before.
So
we
you want me to
actually
hold this
vote.
one too?
You pull this one as well.
We're gonna pull this one.
Okay, so I'll hold that one too.
Not sure I'm
Um,
down with that yet.
And page 71 through 74 is also a legal change. It's the same as we discussed earlier with personnel, but it says that anyone aware of any type of allegation of harassment or discrimination must report it. So it's deleting language that says it's got to be a written report to qualify. And finally, 75, it's recommended that if there's an investigation by an officer or the cabinet as to whether, when there's a child that has allegedly been a victim of abuse or neglect, that the school personnel will follow the direction of the investigator as to whether to contact the parent. Certainly, if the parent was the person that allegedly did it, you wouldn't want to be contacted.
No.
So it's saying we'll follow the direction of the investigator.
Something that's long been in practice, but
Now, Damon, that was not too painful.
Hey, you know what, you are wonderful.
this is only, we're not, we got another batch
We
that
got
we'll have
another
to take care of.
And she's going on retiring at the end of the month, so I don't care. And just one, the only one I really saw, because one thing I always look at these is financial implication, whether there is any or not. The only one I think I saw out of all of those had to do with the abuse training, potential for substitutes if they had to have substitutes. All the rest of them, it looked like there was no financial implication against districts anticipated, meaning it wouldn't cost us anything, it was just a language change. Okay,
Thank you, thank you.
thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Fun.
Okay, so let me dig through my papers here. So that puts us into item 7 on the agenda, student stakeholder engagement, 7A, guest comments. Okay, so then need a motion to adjourn the regular session.
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Berry,
Second.
second by Mr. Norman, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Do, we need the executive session tonight or not? Don't think so? Okay, so then that be it.
Thank you, ladies and
Good
gentlemen.
deal.